Hopefully someone suggests getting authorization now for Iran, that Congress would do it. This email was sent by Jeffrey Epstein to Ehud Barak, the former prime minister of Israel, in September of 2013, almost 13 years ago. And this is important because you can see Jeffrey Epstein in this message actually pushing behind the scenes for the US to essentially go to war on Iran, or I should say go to war with Iran. But the fact that he was saying this to Israel's former prime minister, and Ehud Barak is the guy who's basically in charge of Israeli intelligence services. He's a very powerful, important guy behind the scenes and a close friend of Epstein's, also accused by victims of being into some really, really violent sexual acts. But seeing this, I mean, this was shocking to me. But buckle up because this rabbit hole gets even deeper. 2018, 5 years after that previous email was sent, Jeffrey is having a conversation with another unnamed individual. This could be Steve Bannon, I don't really know. But in this conversation, they are essentially talking about Donald Trump. Trump was president at the time, and they're saying that there was public scrutiny surrounding Trump at the time. There were investigations closing in around Trump. Impeachment was the talk of the town. And basically they were talking about, they literally called Trump a rat and say, we don't know what a rat would do if he were backed into a corner. And Epstein suggests that he might choose to bomb Iran. It's right there in the emails. And whoever Epstein's talking to even says, oh, that would be crazy. And then Epstein says, not from his perspective, basically saying he would understand why Trump would choose to bomb Iran to get the attention and the eyes of the prying public off of him. It's interesting too, because they're talking about Trump and his family and his business dealings at the time, and Epstein seemingly seems to posit that bombing Iran would be a distraction. There was also the tweet posted by the former head of Iran, Ayatollah Khamenei. He wrote, or his team wrote on X in February, this island of corruption, which is talking obviously about Epstein Island, is only one example. There is much more of this. Just as this was not apparent and then became exposed, there are many other things that will soon come to light. And now, just a few weeks after, he is dead. I'm not saying here that I obviously support Ayatollah Khamenei and what he implemented in Iran, but I do find the timing of all of this partnered with Epstein's old emails to be fishy. So what do you think? Is this all just one big coincidence? Did war just happen to break out in the middle of the Epstein files becoming the world's #1 talking point? Or am I just reading too far into this? Why don't you let me know? So Iran is now openly claiming that members of the Epstein class are going to attack America. I'm just going to read this to you. This is an actual verifiable tweet from a man named Ali Larijani. And Ali is the secretary of the Supreme National Security Council of Iran. So he is one of the most powerful individuals in all of Iran, and he's extremely plugged into intelligence. So obviously he knows a thing or two about a thing or two. Now, keep in mind that this could be a lie. This could be propaganda. However, I am going to read this to you. And to the TikTok censors, this is verifiable information and a developing news story. So Ali tweeted, I've heard that the remaining members of Epstein's network have devised a conspiracy to create an incident similar to, I'm just going to let you read that number because I don't want to get censored, and blame Iran for it. Iran fundamentally opposes such terrorist schemes and has no war with the American people. So this is coming from this guy, one of the most powerful individuals in all of Iran. And as we know, Iran has been talking a lot about the Epstein files. And, you know, Iran is actually mentioned in the Epstein files a number of times. So what do you make of this? I'm very curious to see what you guys think. And for Censors Online, this is reporting on a issue in the news. This is reported by mainstream media. This is independently verifiable. I don't know. I'm sorry I have to be overly cautious, but I have had 7 different videos taken down this week, and they don't give me a chance to appeal. So I do not want this to happen again with this video. So I'm being explicitly clear that this information is
What happened to Jeffrey Epstein? There are so many pictures of Epstein when he was younger that I've found in the files. And I know that he's like one of the worst people of all time, but I mean, he seems to have been relatively normal when he was a younger guy, a younger kid. And I know that this doesn't exactly scream normal, but I mean, I don't know. It was at around this time in Epstein's life, according to all researchers, when something happened. When Epstein was, I don't know if you want to call it recruited or what, but brought into the world of intelligence, of blackmail gathering, according to people like Whitney Webb, of arms trafficking, like selling weapons. And yeah, I mean, it's just always weird to see these young pictures of Epstein because he's like the world's supervillain right now, but in a lot of these photos from his youth, he looks pretty normal. like him going on ski trips. I mean, he definitely looks creepy in almost every picture taken of him. Like, he's got such a creepy expression. But, just kind of like an average dude back then. So, what exactly happened? I think that is one of the things that needs to be focused on by investigators at this point in order to really try and get to the bottom of the Epstein enigma. Because we have theories, and people like Whitney Webb have provided evidence, but, I mean, there's still so much more that we could know.
Back in the 60s and 70s, Jeffrey Epstein seemed to be kind of counterculture. I mean, just look at the pictures of him when he was growing up. He seemed to always be rocking long hair, and he had honestly a pretty diverse group of what seemed to be friends. There are also many pictures of Epstein riding motorcycles or posing with motorcycles. He seems to have been a motorbike aficionado. And it's weird to me, if I were seeing these pictures in any other context, it would almost look like they were photographs of a lost 1970s rock band. I'm assuming, though, this is Epstein in the top right. I could be wrong. It could be this guy, but I'm pretty sure it's him back right, wearing the pink Mickey Mouse shirt. But genuinely, I would love to hear from some of these people, the people who knew Epstein growing up. Why do I feel like we really haven't heard anything from any of those individuals who knew Epstein before he became Epstein, if that makes sense? Because when we talk about the Epstein story, Epstein's family didn't have any super deep political connections. Epstein didn't have this, family history of nobility. He seemingly, from all sources and from the outside looking in, he seemed like a normal guy when he was growing up. Obviously, when Epstein entered his teenage years and started going to school and eventually went to college, allegedly dropped out, that's when things really started to get weird. And I'm sure that the machine was working around Epstein before that, but I don't know. I mean, I'd just like to get some perspective on what Epstein was like. Who was he? What did he want to do with his life, really, from some of the people that actually knew him? I don't know the identities of any of these men, but I think it would be extremely enlightening if even just one of them would stand up, speak out, and kind of do an interview with somebody about what Epstein was like so that we could try to understand him more. Because unfortunately, he's dead. Now, obviously, I think that there should be an extremely harsh punishment for sex trafficking and trafficking of minors and whatnot, but the fact that Epstein's dead is obviously such a huge loss for this investigation. Man, it's the biggest loss, and for any justice for the victims and survivors. But if he were alive, we could have gained so much insight, and I don't know, I just feel like one of these people in these photographs could provide that insight to us. The Epstein files are full of some absolutely horrific imagery. And for some reason, as I was scanning through the files, I noticed that there were a number of Dan Bilzerian images, posts, just related content, and I really do not know why. Now, I remember back in the day, Dan Bilzerian was a huge influencer on Instagram, and I remember seeing his posts all the time, especially when I was in high school. And I mean, you can see almost a parallel between the image Dan Bilzerian was attempting to portray to the world and what Epstein was trying to portray as well. Billionaire playboys, risk takers, private plane flyers, surrounded at all times by young women. But I do find it curious, why would the DOJ redact the identities of individuals seen in Dan Bilzerian's posts? I mean, these are models, I'm assuming, that Dan paid to appear in these photographs. These are public photographs, and obviously Dan Bilzerian is a public figure. And we know, since you can go back and compare these photos to the photos that were once posted on Bilzerian's Instagram account, that there's nothing illegal to be seen here. And yet these identities are redacted. To me, this shows gross incompetence on the part of the DOJ, because they pick and choose not only who or what to redact, but when to implement those redactions. And it's very laissez-faire. There's no rhythm, no reason, no rule here. Because, I mean, Dan Bilzerian's face appears in this image, which you can see is in the file, but then he's redacted here. And the women's faces are redacted, even though I'm just assuming that they aren't victims. And yet in other posts, they are not. So I'm still trying to figure out the Bilzerian connection. There's even a picture of him and Post Malone that was found in the files. If you have any insight on this, if anybody knows why these appeared in the files so many times, please let me know. Explosive new photos found in the Epstein files seem to show Andrew, formerly Prince Andrew, with very, very young women or potentially children on his lap. Now, there are a few new photos of Andrew that have emerged, but we're starting to see a pattern here throughout all the pictures of this guy. He always seems to be on women. He seems to be hugging women. There's that infamous picture of him and Virginia Giuffre. As you can see here, he seems to be lying across the lapse of at least 5 Epstein, I'm assuming survivors or victims. And I don't even need to mention these photos at this point. They're so famous. A lot of people have seen them. But once again, it's Andrew on top of a woman. Or if it's not a woman, a child. I mean, I hesitate to say woman or child because we have no real details on who these people are. But obviously, to the naked eye, they seem to be on the younger side, especially when it comes to these photos. But I can't say definitively who this girl is or what her age was. But there are multiple photos. As you can see here, this does appear to be Prince Andrew, and this does appear to be inside of Jeffrey Epstein's Manhattan apartment. And yeah, I mean, there's just so much left unexplored and uninvestigated within the Epstein files. For me, I was excited at first when I heard that Prince Andrew was arrested, and I think that any arrest or legal proceeding is a good thing when it comes to this case. However, when I found out that they weren't investigating Andrew for crimes against children and minors, I was honestly a little bit infuriated, because it's like, this guy is clearly guilty. He was clearly complicit, according to the documents and the testimony of survivors in the sex trafficking operations. And yet he's going to get probably some sort of a slap on the wrist for a corruption charge or a financial charge, and he'll most likely get away with his crimes against the youth. But what do you think about these new photos? Let me know in the comments section.